Because of that, we're going to disregard anything you have to say about it. So they haven't protected Fernando Mendoza at all. That's too much to ask for them. One way or the other, they're going to learn what after dark means.
Miami will throw more passing touchdowns on Cal than they've had this entire season. Welcome, college football fans, to another episode of the Inside Insight Show, a series where we bring on a content creator or super fan that covers Miami's opponent each week so they can tell us a little bit more about their team. Now, today, I'm very happy to be joined by Thomas. And I do have to say, Thomas, not to take away from your introduction here, believe it or not, Thomas and I talked for just a moment before we started this video, and I just noticed a giant bear behind you. Is he wearing a gold chain?
Yeah, so we're going to get into the algorithm very soon, and we'll just say one of the people inspired in that circle, made one of these backgrounds for a shirt, and I just screenshot him like, you know what, it's an appropriate background, because usually I don't do podcast backgrounds, but all of a sudden I'm like, there's some good designs that deserve some more love. Even this Cal SEC logo shirt, I'm like, you can't really hate on the creativity of some people at this point.
Yeah, I got to be honest, even from a Miami fan, it's pretty dope. Like, I think it's pretty cool looking. So with that being said, Thomas, if you could introduce yourself, tell the viewers a bit about you and where they can follow you.
Yeah, so as Coop mentioned, I'm Thomas. Tried and true from the Bay Area. Grew up here. Grew up a Cal fan. Currently cover the team for writeforcalifornia.com. So write WRITE for California.com. All things California Golden Bears, made by Cal fans for Cal fans, in just the name of wanting Cal to be great. That's really our mission. We want to see them do well, and we realize the opportunity that's at stake here. So I do my best to toe the line, be fanatical when it needs to come, and be analytical when it also needs to come, because at the end of the day, we do a disservice to the fans if we're not being honest. So that's really how I take pride in my work, and I hope it shows on social media when I start covering this game this weekend and college game days in town. I mean, that's not a sense I thought I'd be uttering if you had asked me that even a month ago.
And you mentioned, Thomas, a big opportunity, and you're right. Honestly, this is a huge opportunity for both of these teams. College game day in Berkeley for the first time ever. And Miami has a chance here to show that they can travel to the other side of the country and remain undefeated. Now, even though Cal is not undefeated, I'll tell you what is, and that's the Calgorithm. So I was introduced to that for the first time this week. I'll be honest, I had never even heard of it, didn't know anything about it. And it's interesting to say the least. For Canes fans who maybe aren't on X, how do you explain what this Calgorithm thing is? Like, what's it about? What is it? Can you just tell people a little bit about it?
Yeah, so I think it's important to start all the way from where it all began. It really started from a circle that's adjacent to the site that we write for, a bunch of fans that love the work that we do, that love all the personalities that they come interact with us at tailgates over at Cal, and sometimes when we're on the road for a yearly road trip or two. So that's really the start of like who. The why is Cal fans have been told for years on end in the college football landscape that they don't matter, that they've said you do not have a worthwhile fan base, you don't have a team or a program that's worth covering in a big time media deal. And just because of that, we're going to disregard anything you have to say about it. Even in local Bay Area media, we haven't had necessarily the coverage, if you will. I don't know if you guys ever experienced that with the Miami and South Beach media, but in our case, it's the idea of you have to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of you got to make it happen for yourself. So now with this outlet to the ACC, it's Cal fans saying, okay, the Pac-12 is done. It's dusted. Those commissioners and horrid TV deals are out of the way. It's on us to go make the momentum happen. And while a team has success on the field, it's our job to continue that momentum off the field. That's how it's worked in conjunction with Miami being a big brand, being in the top 10 in the country right now, and then Cal fans doing their part to capitalize on a middling slate this week and say, hey, there's a reason you can come out west to Berkeley. There's a reason why you can tick off another university that you've never been to for college game day and say, hey, we're here to stay, and regardless of what happens, you're going to know who we are and what we're about.
And funny enough, this might be an unpopular opinion amongst Canes fans, but Calgorithm actually seems pretty chill and cool. And maybe it's just something specifically with Miami, because we get a lot of hate and disrespect, and you talk about you guys, not getting as much attention as you would like. And it's like we've kind of created this friendship online. Like all the algorithm posts I see about this woke versus Coke thing and all these different things, Miami fans are laughing about it, and we're going back and forth. And it was interesting because Florida State fans warned me. They said, Coop, beware of the algorithm. These guys are crazy. Like, and I think maybe they just didn't get that Canes fans are also pretty crazy. Can you tell me, for Cal, what you would say would be the biggest strength and the not so fun part, biggest weakness for the team? And I don't even mean going into Miami specifically, just in general. Biggest strength, biggest weakness right now.
Yeah, I think the biggest strength so far this season has been the team defense. Something that it fell by the wayside the past few seasons, as opposed to the start of the Justin Wilcox regime, where Cal defense was just locking teams down left, right, front, and center, and saying you're not going to get past this secondary that eventually produced 5 NFL players as it stands right now. So 2022 and 2023 were banner defenses in the ugly way. Justin Wilcox teams had never given up 50 points in a single game for any single reason, regardless of how the points were scored, until 2023. It ended up giving 59 to Washington, 52 to Oregon State, 50 to USC, 63 to Oregon. You can kind of see where the trend's going. So it's one of those things where, well, what just happened? You have a defensive head coach, you had a clear strength of the team fall by the wayside, and you're like, well, you better get it fixed or else your job might be on the line here. So coming into this season, there's been a big injection of talent along the floor of this defense, mainly in the defensive line room and inside linebacker room. And really what that's done is it's allowed everyone to do their jobs. They don't feel a need to look over their shoulder and say, hey, I need to cover this guy who may be out of position. The secondary doesn't feel like I have to blanket receivers for 6 or 7 seconds per play, because that's more, you can't expect that. That's too much to ask for them. So it's just the ability of just being able to hunker down and say, hey, let me do my assignment. And if I do my assignment, chances are we're going to execute what we need to execute. Going into the weakness of the team, I think it's become pretty clear over the course of the first few weeks. It's that offensive line. 2023, they took a big step forward compared to 2022, because 2022, they were a bottom 5 unit in the nation in all accounts. So that was really the big problem. They changed offensive line coaches. They made a reasonable jump last year. This year, they were hoping to stay consistent in that regard, and they haven't been so. They haven't created enough running lanes for Jade Naughton, who has been in and out of the lineup with his health, and they haven't protected Fernando Mendoza at all. I know Florida State was the big showcase of, hey, here's the big problem for Cal. 4 sacks given up in the fourth quarter alone in that game. But it's really been a continuation of everything in the first 3 games as well. Fernando Mendoza, the Miami native and Columbus High School grad, he's just taken too many hits too many times. And at some point, he's going to get hit again. And you have to wonder, can he keep taking it? Because you can't expect that. You can put a quarterback through that much duress. At some point, the seal's going to crack. So it's really about the offensive line hunkering down, just getting back to their fundamentals. They're not working their silent counts well enough, and they haven't really performed in tough road environments. So that's really the big leaps that they needed to take during this bye weekend if they want to show up well and execute on Saturday.
Yeah, and I'm not even trying to dog y'all. When I looked at some of the stats for the offensive line, I did a double take. Like I even had my wife will help me with some of the numbers and stuff. Like she'll give me some stuff to review and look at. And I was like, there has to be a mistake here when looking at the amount of sacks and stuff this season. But I mean, you're right. That's definitely pretty wild to see. What would be your biggest concern then going up against Miami specifically then? Would it be the Miami's D-line? Would it be trying to, shut down Cam Ward? What would be your biggest concern for Miami?
Yeah, I would think I'll take one concern on both sides of the ball. So with Cal on offense, I think the big concern unquestionably is the Miami defensive line. So many players, and I know Ruben Bain's scheduled to come back this week, so that would be a big injection of talent for the Canes. So that obviously will help along that front. But for Cal, it's make sure that you can block even if they're only sending 4 or 5. Because I know sometimes Miami doesn't like to send pressure, so they send disguise. They pull the linebacker in, they take him out, something along those lines. Can Cal find a way to not mix themselves up? Because if you set your offense too many times into 3rd and longs, it's going to be a long night. Cal needs to make sure that they stay on schedule. They don't need to be ahead of schedule. They just need to make sure that they're playing fundamentally sound football. They're not killing themselves with pre-snap penalties or holding when they don't need to do it after breaking off a big run. They just need to find a way to be hunkered down and be themselves. And I know be themselves through 4 games has not been that great, but it's find a way to turn back the clock into last year and say, hey, just do the fundamentals right. At that point, it's up to the skill talent. And we know Miami has a lot of it. So the ability to shoot gaps in the run game and in the pass game, the ability to create chaos and find a way to speed up Fernando Mendoza. That's the big worry for me. And I hope that if Cal gets into too many third longs, you have to wonder about how good that Miami pass rush is going to be. So that's my big concern on that side. On the flip side, Cam Ward, obviously one of the best players in the nation as it stands right now. Cal fans really familiar with him, actually. They played him twice when he was at Washington State.
Yeah.
So Miami fans have seen his development in terms of his discipline and his ability to not put the ball in harm's way, at least until the Virginia Tech game. Cal fans have seen the big scale of Cam Ward. In 2 games, he's got 6 total touchdowns against Cal. He also has 6 total turnovers. So Cal fans have seen every single little thing that Cam Ward is, whether it's been an interception, a touchdown pass, a touchdown run, a fumble that heads the other way. They've seen it all. So really, it's about being disciplined in rushing Cam Ward, not letting him roll right, and the ability to say, hey, are you going to take that 4-yard check down? Are you going to find a way to just scramble for 2 yards as opposed to chucking it up down the field and possibly putting the ball in harm's way? That's what I want to see, because Justin Wilcox, a known defensive head coach, is like, okay, we've seen you long enough. We know what your tendencies may be. Can you prove that you've gotten out of those tendencies and continually sustain that when the going gets tough? Now, if Cal doesn't do well on that front and he rolls right, the guy I want to look for on the backside is Xavier Restrepo. That's the guy who I'm looking at, because he lines up primarily in the slot, and I trust our outside corners to get the job done. That's not to say Isaiah Horton or Jacoby George can't make plays, but they haven't given me a reason to say, hey, you can't match up on any set of receivers in the country so far. But in the slot, that's been a little bit of a vulnerability. And if that happens to let Cam Ward get on the loose, that's where I would look down the field and say, hey, if Miami wants to make an off-schedule play, that's where it can come from.
Now, what about an impact player for Cal on each side of the ball, offense and defense? Who you got?
Yeah, on offense, we'll go with the star power, Jade Knott. He's been in and out of the lineup so far this season. He's played about 1.5 to 2 total healthy games so far. So he was injured in our opener, basically was a decoy the whole Auburn game, missed San Diego State, and returned in spurts against Florida State. He looked as elusive as he had been throughout the whole season, as he can be so far throughout the season, given his health. And I think we should progress to about 90 to 95% health this weekend.
Ooh, okay.
So can Miami continue to finish tackles is what I want to see against Jay Knott, who's someone who's proven to be very elusive, tends to not go down on first contact, and turn out a bit of a nice acceleration when he rumbles up the A or B gap. So that's really what I want to see, because I know the Canes struggled at points to finish tackles against Virginia Tech, and Jay Knott, someone who can punish that consistently. It's just a matter of how much of wheels does he have in him right now. Backing him up is Javian Thomas, someone who's proven to be so far so good along that front in terms of a backup. Had 17 carries for 169 yards in the one game that he subbed for Ott. So can Miami continue to finish tackles against those nice running backs? On the other side, Cade Uluwave, inside linebacker, someone who I think he had a bit of a rough go against Florida State, but someone who has proven from the second half of last year through the start of this year that he can get the job done as one of the leaders of the defense. He picked off Ward last year against Washington State and returned a fumble for a touchdown. So Ward and Uluwave, whether fortunate or unfortunate, are very familiar with one another. So he's going to be a guy that's going to make sure that everyone's in position. Him alongside inside linebacker Teddy Buchanan are the guys who they stir the drink for the defense. They help get everyone fitted the right way. And if they continue to be as smart as they have been, it can bode well. They just need to make sure they aren't as leaky as they were in the run game against Florida State, because that was something that needed to get patched up compared to prior games.
Do you have a major key for Cal to win this game? I know there's so many different directions you could take this, but like kind of the biggest point, the thing that Cal needs to take care of to try to win this one.
Yeah, I think to go with like a vague style approach here would be like play smart football. And specifically within that, the offense cannot put the ball in harm's way continually. I think the defense can show Miami the biggest resistance it has so far this season in terms of Miami's offense moving down the field. Is that not to say that Miami will score a well-earned 31 to 34 points? That's completely in question. They can definitely do that. They've proven more than a number of times so far this season that they can move the ball pretty much on anybody. I do think Cal will be the first team to show a shield and say, hey, you're going to have to earn these yards. You're going to have to earn these points. I think that's one thing I really want to see going down the line. Can Cal be smart? Can they play within themselves and not let the moment consume them? Because you have College Game Day looking at you. You got the nation's eyes looking at you. We know it's a late start for Miami coming across the country. How are the Canes going to adjust their body clock when it gets to the second half and it's about midnight, 12:30 a.m. EST the next day? How can Cal find a way to use those factors and channel it the right way? Because you come out with a lot of energy. That's great. If you go up 7-0, that's phenomenal. But Miami's not going to lay down for you. That's not going to happen. Yeah. It's not. You're a top 10 team in your house. It's not going to be easy. No one said it would be easy. That's why you want these moments. That's why you want to come perform. So Cal has to be smart. They have to not shoot themselves in the foot repeatedly. And if they do that, they have a chance. It's not to say they're going to win, but they put themselves in the best possible chance to find a way to make some magic happen on Saturday night.
Is Cal a pretty heavily penalized team, or you guys do pretty good in that area? Because Miami, we started out, I think we only had like 2 penalties against Florida, but now we're consistently hanging around like 6 to 8 penalties per game. What about you guys?
In the past, it hasn't been much of an issue at all. This year, it's been quite an issue. I think they're averaging double-digit penalties per
Wow.
game, and the Auburn game kind of skews it because they just were false starting everywhere, and then the SEC referees got involved with a pass interference at the end to give Auburn a token touchdown. So that was a lovely experience, if you will. So,
Do you have any bold predictions for fun? Thomas, for fun. All right, I always have to add the disclaimer because people, clip it out of context. Thomas said this, Coop said that. Any bold predictions for this game?
I think your Miami fans, one way or the other, are going to learn what after dark means, and that's not to say it's not a quantifiable thing. It's not really a football term, if
Right.
you will. You just kind of hear all these terms, Pac-12 after dark, thrown everywhere these past few years. It's just kind of a thing that happens. There's no rhyme or reason to any of the chaos that happens. You mix together the cardiac canes with cardiac Cal, and we may both end up at the doctor's office Sunday
Yeah.
morning. Is really what may happen.
Now, I do want to give one of my bold predictions going into this game. And I don't know, tell me if you think maybe it's not so crazy. Maybe it's not that bold. But I believe, if I'm recalling correctly here, Cal has only given up 3 passing touchdowns so far this season. Is that right? It's 3 or 4, but I think it's 3.
Yeah, in that region,
Okay.
yes.
I think that on Saturday night, Miami will throw more passing touchdowns on Cal than they've had this entire season across 4 games. I think Miami can have 3 or more passing touchdowns.
Yeah, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all. You got a lot of game breakers on offense. You got a lot of coaches that know Cal's coaching staff. I mean, we talked Mario Cristobal, obviously the man in charge, Alex Maryville, the offensive line coach, and you got a lot of personnel that know Cal, frontwards, backwards, diagonal, however you want to slice it up. I think it goes both ways. Both teams know each other very well, and we'll see who it benefits ultimately come Saturday. So that's not out of the realm of possibility at all.
Okay, so do I need to bump it up to like 5 or more for it to be a bold prediction?
Yeah, at that point, I may have to throw a little FSU spear in the ground and say, hold on a second here. Be like, also like going in, actually another hot take. If we don't have a Sebastian or Oski interaction this Saturday, this was all for naught, and we have to do this over again. We have to do it over again, if I'm being honest.
Thomas, can we talk about that mascot? I was not planning on discussing this, but I pulled up a picture, and I'll tell you what, we don't see it right now, but in post-production, you guys are going to see it, the viewers. I'm going to put up a picture of Cal's mascot, and I swear this is something out of a horror game or a movie. He's standing there holding like a birthday cake, and I don't know, the shape of his mouth. This guy looks like he could be a serial killer in some kind of movie.
Yeah, they kind of lean into it. That's one of the things that the algorithm does. They say they do Oski's bidding just because he pops up in so many cursed images.
Oh, yeah.
And the one thing that Sebastian and Oski are actually in lockstep in, they've both been arrested or almost arrested out of a game. I know Sebastian heard about the 89 thing against FSU or 98, somewhere in that scenario, but Oski also got taken off the court against Stanford in basketball. So I think you can imagine how that looked. So both these mascots, they need to find each other in some way, in some capacity Saturday. Otherwise, I demand to redo this game because we have to do it right. We have to make sure everyone that comes out west has a great time, and that'll be a part of the supplementary vibes, if you will.
You know what? I'll back you up on that, Thomas. I agree. I think the people need to see it on Saturday night. So we're gonna wrap this up here, the way that we always do, with a final prediction. I always let my guests know that you don't have to put specific numbers out there if you don't want to. I know that I'm a little crazy for doing that, but it's kind of fun just to see, how close you can get. I do have Miami winning. I've got a 34-17 victory, which is a 17-point win for the Canes. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Miami opened as a 14-point favorite, roughly, and it's hovering around 10.5 right now. So I'm definitely above that with the 17-point win. But Canes fans were a little upset at me with this because, we talk about Cal, not putting up a ton of points, not having a super explosive offense. And Miami has been putting up big points this season. But again, you factor in late night. I respect Cal's corners. I think Miami will have a tough time at times in this game. So I've got 34-17. What about you, Thomas?
Yeah, I think in that case, Miami fans might be a little peeved because I'm in a similar window to you. So we'll see how they interpret this. I have Miami 31, Cal 20. So I think the energy that Cal will have to start with will be in their favor. I think they realize what's at stake. you have a top 10 team at home. It's obviously a big opportunity. You have to welcome that smoke. If you're not, and I don't see any reason why the team wouldn't, you're not in the right business. You're not in the right industry. You want to make sure that, hey, you got all eyes on you. It's up to you to perform. I think that's one thing that Cal's going to take into their mentality into this game and say, hey, people have shunned us for years on it, and they say, hey, our program isn't worth a salt. Now we can go show some of these people and show some of these pundits, hey, we mean business. And that's not to say that you go punch Miami into the mat repeatedly for 4 quarters. That's not how it's going to happen. I don't foresee that happening in any universe. But it's to say, hey, we mean business. We're not just going to lay over for you. Even if you go down the field and score first and it's 7-0 in about 5 minutes into the game. So that's really what I look at and say, hey, Cal's going to find a way to sustain the momentum early. But then Miami, they have a lot of talent on all sides of the football, and I believe have a net advantage in the special teams unit to say, hey, when the going gets tough and it's maybe 28-20 late in the fourth quarter, we can kick a field goal and then hunker down and maybe not let Cal throw that last punch, that last sustained punch, if you will, when it gets to be about 1 a.m. body clock time or 1:30 a.m. body clock time for the Canes. So that's really one thing I see, that both of these teams are going to face some adversity they haven't seen yet this season. And I think Miami just has enough juice to get out the other side and say, hey, we're going to go into this bye week undefeated, but we're going to know that we were tested and this offense was put to the test in significant ways that they weren't necessarily preparing for. I want to step a little bit off the field here and state my appreciation for, and Cal fans' appreciation for Miami, the institution, because it's not lost on us that Miami is one of the supporting institutions to allow Cal the outlet to get into the ACC.
Yep.
I won't waste breath on another institution in the state that did not vote the same way. So if you talk to any of us about it, we're all aware of what Miami, the institution, and how in lockstep they were with Cal's mission, Stanford missions, SMU's mission here in the ACC, and that, hey, we're a historic program that we don't deserve to die on the vine. We got guys like Marshawn Lynch, who's coming back for College game day. We got Jared Goff. We got Aaron Rodgers. We got Alex Mack. We got a plethora of other guys that have been through these halls and been through these locker rooms and say, hey, this is the program that we believe in, we bleed in, and come out the other side with supporting. So we understand that Miami's role in this case and a brand that didn't have to take us. So that's something we're very much aware of. And one last thing on Fernando Mendoza, the Miami native himself. We do wish Miami fans the best trip out west that they can possibly have. Maybe secretly root for a hometown guy to do as well as he can, but Miami wins maybe 31-30 or something like that.
Okay.
But for the fans that do make it out to the trip, there's this Mexican food spot called La Burrita, and they have what's called the Fernando Mendoza burrito. All proceeds from that burrito go to tackle MS in support of his mother, who has MS right now. So that's a big deal for him and something that Cal fans have embraced, because Fernando Mendoza, you don't want anybody else representing your university. He's someone who you look at him and he's the poster child, and you're like, yes, we're in good hands. This is someone who will lead us not only on the field, but off the field and everything that comes along with that. So those are my final few musings and thoughts on this matchup, and hope for a good one Saturday. It'll be a late one. It'll be a long one, but hopefully a good one.
Now, see, Thomas, this is what I'm talking about with Calgorithm. You make it impossible to not like you guys, right? We want to beat your booty on the football field, but I feel bad even talking down about Cal football because I'm like, you're too nice. I can't. So
yeah, don't get us wrong. We do want to win that football game, and we're going to come with every intention to win that football game. But we're not going to go in head first saying we're going 12-0. We're making the ACC championship. We're winning the college football playoff, the whole 9 yards there. We understand where we are, but we understand that people from the outside don't necessarily know that, and it's on us to change that narrative.
Okay. Now, I myself have 2 closing thoughts right quick here. You mentioned Marshawn Lynch. Surely they're going to let him pull up in a golf cart, right? For college game, they have to. If not, that's a huge missed opportunity. Like, come on. If Corso somehow goes with the Oski head at the end of college game day and they don't ride off in a golf cart, again, we did it wrong. Do it again. Yep, I agree. And the way that I like to end all of these, Miami Hurricanes have something that is known all around the world, Thomas. Does Cal have any sort of saying, hand gesture, anything that y'all do?
The big statement is roll on, you Bears, go Bears, something in that vein. When we have a drinking song that we say in one of the lines, we'll just say curses at Stanford, so you guys can get the vibe of how we are in that rivalry. But it's something that we take a lot of pride in, and we take a lot of pride in just having people understand who we are right when they meet us and not from what they see online and other people.
All right. Hey, Thomas. All right. So we both got Miami victories. I know that wasn't easy to do. But a lot of respect come on here with honesty, and we don't know what's going to happen at the end of the day. And I appreciate you once again taking time out of your night. Guys, follow my man Thomas. Again, links in the description, links in the pinned comment. Show him some love. And I guess we'll see what happens. It's not far away. So, Thomas, we appreciate you, bro.
Hey, we appreciate it. It's getting close to game time. I will wear my heart on my sleeve and hope for a Cal win, but my head says otherwise. My heart will predict a Cal win. But, we got to be rational about these things. We got to understand where we are.
Fair enough.